Ladies and gentlemen, gather round. Prepare yourselves for a tale of thunder, tears, and tremendous triumph. This is not just any story, this is the saga of a boy who ran from his shadow but learned to move faster than lightning itself. This is the complete story of Zenitsu Agatsuma. A young boy, alone in the world, drowning in debt, believing he is utterly, completely worthless. That was Zenitsu. His entire life was a scream of terror. He saw himself as a coward, a failure, destined to be loved by no one. He was so consumed by fear that his default mode was to run, to hide, to cry. He was the last person you'd ever expect to become a demon slayer. Imagine the most pathetic character introduction possible. Not a cool, silent type with a mysterious past, not a hot-headed hero eager for a fight. No, we meet our hero, literally clinging to the legs of a terrified stranger, snot and tears streaming down his face, wailing at an ear-splitting volume about how he doesn't want to die. This is our first, unforgettable impression of Zenitsu Agatsuma. This wasn't an act, this was his baseline. His entire existence was a monument to cowardice. He was a storm of anxiety in a world where actual, flesh-eating demons lurked in the shadows, a world that demanded constant, life-or-death bravery. He was, by his own admission, a yellow-bellied coward who should have been the first to fall. His backstory only deepens this portrait of despair. Before he even met a demon, he was already broken by life. Swindled by a woman into a mountain of debt, he saw himself as utterly worthless, a burden who was fundamentally unlovable. He believed his own life had no value. So, when his grandfather, Jigoro Kuwajima, offered him a path as a demon slayer, Zenitsu didn't see it as an honor, he saw it as a death sentence. Every moment of training was torture. Every assignment was a reason to scream and run away. His internal monologue was a relentless, self-deprecating loop. I'm going to die, I'm too weak, I can't do this. He wasn't just afraid of demons, he was afraid of his own shadow, of failure, of the immense pressure that came with simply trying to be strong. This is what makes his journey so powerful. We aren't watching a confident hero grow stronger, we are witnessing a soul who is convinced of his own inadequacy slowly, painfully, discovering that he was wrong about himself all along. The transformation isn't a switch that flips, it's a gradual dawning. It begins in his unconscious state, a brilliant narrative device that separates his true ability from his crippling self-doubt. The sleeping Zenitsu is a master, a blur of golden lightning, a warrior of impeccable form and devastating power. But upon waking, he would dismiss his own incredible feats, attributing them to luck or someone else's intervention. The evidence of his own strength was right in front of him, yet his low self-esteem was a barrier he couldn't see past. The real struggle wasn't against the demons, it was against the voice in his own head that told him he was nothing. His journey from coward to courageous isn't about eliminating fear, but about learning to move forward despite its deafening scream, to find a reason to fight that is louder than the voice telling him to run. In the world of shonen anime, a mentor's role is often to unlock hidden potential, but for Zenitsu Agatsuma, his master, Jigoro Kuwajima, did something far more profound. He offered salvation. When we first learn of their history, it's easy to see it as a simple training arc. A retired Hashira, the Thunder Hashira no less, takes on a student. But the context is everything. Zenitsu wasn't a promising recruit, he was a desperate, broken boy, drowning in debt and self-loathing, seeing no future for himself. He came to Jigoro not seeking power, but seeking an escape from his creditors, a place to hide. Another master might have turned him away, seeing only the whining, the cowardice, the lack of spirit. But Jigoro Kuwajima possessed a wisdom that saw beyond the surface. Where everyone else, including Zenitsu himself, saw a worthless coward, Jigoro saw a scared child who needed compassion more than he needed discipline. This is the core of the legacy. Jigoro's training wasn't just about physical technique, it was an act of unconditional acceptance. He provided a home, not just a dojo. He became a grandfather figure, patient and kind, even when Zenitsu's hysterics must have been exhausting. He endured the constant wailing and attempts to run away because he believed in a fundamental truth, that every person has a unique value. This belief was tested by Zenitsu's apparent inability. While his other student, Kaigaku, excelled at learning all the forms of thunder breathing, Zenitsu struggled immensely, ultimately mastering only one, the first form, thunderclap and flash. In the eyes of the world, and especially in the jealous eyes of Kaigaku, this was a monumental failure. But Jigoro, in his infinite wisdom, recognized something miraculous. Zenitsu hadn't just learned the form, he had perfected it, honing that single, straightforward technique to a level of speed and precision that was utterly breathtaking. Jigoro didn't force him to be like Kaigaku, he accepted Zenitsu for what he was, a specialist of unparalleled focus. This legacy, however, carried a tragic weight. Jigoro's ultimate fate, taking his own life as atonement for Kaigaku's betrayal and becoming a demon, cast a long shadow over Zenitsu. It transformed the thunder-breathing technique from a simple skill into a sacred inheritance. It was no longer just about fighting demons, it was about honoring the memory of the man who saved him. The technique became a connection to the only father figure he ever had. This is why Zenitsu's final battle against Kaigaku is so emotionally charged. It wasn't just a clash of good versus evil, it was a battle for the soul of their master's legacy. Kaigaku had spat upon Jigoro's teachings, while Zenitsu, the failure, was the one who truly embodied its spirit. By creating a new, seventh form, Honoikazuki no Kami, from a place of awakened courage, Zenitsu didn't just defeat a demon, he completed his master's work, proving that the legacy was not about rigid forms, but about the heart of the warrior who wielded it. Jigoro didn't just give Zenitsu a sword technique, he gave him a family, a purpose, and a reason to finally believe in himself. The concept of the sleeping warrior is one of the most brilliantly executed and relatable tropes in Zenitsu's story, a perfect narrative representation of the immense gap between his crippling self-doubt and his latent, incredible power. On the surface, it's a fantastic source of comic relief, the sheer absurdity of this sniveling coward instantly transforming into a cool, silent, and devastatingly effective master swordsman the moment he loses consciousness is pure anime gold. We, the audience, are led in on the joke. We see the bewildered looks on Tanjiro and Inosuke's faces as Zenitsu, mid-snore, executes a technique so fast it's barely a blur, only to wake up moments later and immediately credit a non-existent, kindly old man, or burst into tears at the sight of the demon he just defeated. This duality is the core of his early character appeal. But if we look deeper, the sleeping warrior is far more than a gag, it's a profound metaphor for untapped potential. Zenitsu's conscious mind is a prison built from a lifetime of being told he's worthless, a fortress of anxiety that actively suppresses his true abilities. His fear is so all-consuming that it acts as a limiter on his body and spirit. When he falls unconscious, that gatekeeper is forcibly removed. What remains is pure, unadulterated instinct, the muscle memory drilled into him by his grandfather, operating at its highest possible efficiency without the paralyzing interference of his thoughts. This proves that the skill, the strength, the courage, it was all there, truly there, all along. It wasn't borrowed or faked. The sleeping Zenitsu is the unvarnished truth of his capabilities, a version of himself that is free from the poison of his own low self-esteem. This creates the central internal conflict for the first half of his journey. The evidence of his own strength is irrefutable, yet his waking self refuses to accept it. He witnesses the aftermath of his own battles but concocts elaborate, denial-filled fantasies to explain it away. This isn't just him being silly, it's a psychological defense mechanism. For him to admit that the sleeping warrior is actually him would be to shatter the entire identity of the worthless coward he has built for himself. It would force him to confront a terrifying new reality, that he is capable and strong. His journey towards true courage, therefore, is not about gaining new power, but about achieving the monumental task of integrating these two fractured halves of himself. The climax of his character arc is when he finally stands against Kaigaku not asleep, but fully awake, with tears in his eyes and fear in his heart, yet choosing to fight regardless. In that moment, the sleeping warrior and the waking coward become one, forging a new, complete hero who acknowledges his fear but is no longer controlled by it. The thunder he wielded was always his, he just needed to learn how to hear its rumble while he was awake. A hero is often defined by their motivation, and for the longest time, Zenitsu seemed to lack a traditional one. He didn't dream of eradicating demons for justice like Tanjiro, or seek glory and strength like Inosuke. His sole motivation was pure, unadulterated survival. He fought, or more accurately, he wanted to run, simply because he didn't want to die. This made him relatable on a very basic level, but it wasn't enough to build true courage upon. Fear for one's own life can only make you so strong, it's a reactive emotion that often leads to paralysis or flight. The transformation of Zenitsu from a character driven by self-preservation to one fueled by selfless devotion is the very bedrock of his heroism, and it hinges on two powerful connections that gave him a reason to fight that was bigger than himself. The first, and most profound, was his promise to Tanjiro to protect Nezuko. This was a seismic shift in his worldview. For the first time, someone, Tanjiro, had shown him unconditional friendship and, more importantly, had entrusted him with something priceless. In Nezuko, Zenitsu found a purpose that transcended his own fear. She was someone vulnerable, someone kind who, even in her demon state, saw the good in him. His comical, often over-the-top infatuation with her was the gateway to a genuine, deep-seated vow. He wasn't just protecting a cute girl, he was honoring the trust of his first real friend and safeguarding an innocence that resonated with his own desire for goodness in a cruel world. This promise became the anchor that held him fast when every instinct screamed to run. It gave his terrifying existence a meaning it had never had before. He was now a protector. The second crucial element was Tanjiro's unwavering belief in him. Tanjiro Kamado, with his almost supernatural sense of empathy, never once wrote Zenitsu off as a lost cause. He never mocked his cowardice or grew impatient with his hysterics. Instead, Tanjiro consistently saw and affirmed the good heart and the hidden strength within Zenitsu. He was a living mirror, reflecting back a version of Zenitsu that Zenitsu himself could not see. This external validation was essential. It planted a seed of doubt in Zenitsu's own negative self-image. If someone as genuinely good and perceptive as Tanjiro believed he was strong, then maybe, just maybe, there was a sliver of truth to it. This belief became a lifeline that Zenitsu could cling to in his moments of deepest despair. The combination of a sacred promise to protect and the steadfast belief of a true friend created a compound strength within him. It was no longer just about his own survival, it was about living up to the trust others had placed in him. This gave him a reason to finally turn around, face the monster, and let his thunder roar, not for himself, but for them.